his parents and family. To Alaska he did roam. He built him a rusty old cabin, and he called it his castle of logs. One night at a rusty old tavern, the northern lights were high. He spied a dark-haired lady with eyes as dark as the night.
cold. Please say Cecile. Say you and your Spanish eyes will wait for me. Spanish eyes, prettiest eyes in all of Mexico.
Well, a lot of people say how great this would be, but they're usually here on sunny summer days. Like I tell everybody, I invite them to come back to spend the weekend in December or January.
To meet that great need, which is so apparent in you, I have a new soap. I have a wonder soap. Here is the finest cleansing agent ever brought forth by man's scientific ingenuity.
You try to keep the survivor's head above the water. They're moving in right now for a basket. We call this a basket pickup.
Anyone living in a southeast city and enjoying the southeast wilderness sometimes must wonder about the advantage of giving up the hecticness of a city life for the hopeful tranquility of a wilderness existence. Hello, I'm Scott Foster and welcome again to Rain Country. We begin this week just 10 miles from downtown Juneau. If you go 10 miles in one direction from downtown Juneau, you're still in the suburbs. 10 miles in this direction puts you in the wilderness, where a family of 3 are living in a wilderness setting, but they have some unusual circumstances.
You know, I employ the power company and derive a salary from that, which probably makes it a lot more fun than if I had to get out and dig it out of the ground, you know, as homesteaders would have to.
Working at a power plant means another unusual aspect to wilderness living: unlimited power.
For the first, 2 years, we didn't have a satellite, and we didn't really even miss that. We did get a VCR the second year, I think, and had some friends tape a movie once in a while for us and send it out. But otherwise, we didn't even have that, and we really didn't miss it. And now we have the satellite, but just in the evenings is the only time we really watch it. We've got two freezers, well actually 3 freezers I guess it is, and 2 refrigerators, and then a refrigerator down in the plant too.
Food orders are radioed to Juneau, filled at a local store, and sent out on a plane every 2 weeks.
Food-wise, we don't have to really want for anything.
Gary and Karen Felt's comfortable wilderness home is old. It was originally built as one of the Juneau area power plants to satisfy the needs of the early gold mines.
About 1915, there's some old photographs we have around here that's the date on them that shows the houses and the powerhouse being built. It's a facility operated by Alaska Electric Light and Power. It's one of the old facilities from back in the gold mining days when it was actually built, went into production, and produces, seems like the latest figure I heard is approximately 10% of the present power consumption of Juneau. I'm a powerhouse operator watchman, my designation. Just being around in case something goes wrong, and for security. Right now the plant, it's set up, it's automated where the thing operator can do the operation, but you know, there's times that something fails and it has to be done manually.
And that's the hitch in the Feltz family wilderness living. Although popular Taku River with its hunting and fishing is just a short boat run away, Gary's job requires he remain on site 24 hours a day, every day. That limits him to the house, the power plant, the boat dock, and an occasional hike up the hill to Annex Lake, the source of the hydropower. In some respects, it's like being in jail, looking at a wilderness that's just out of reach. Not that Gary is complaining.
I work at home, more or less, and I can spend more time with Karen, and especially now that with Brandon, I get to spend a lot more time with him than I would if I lived in town.
We're about 20 miles away from town, from Juneau, and you have to come out by float plane, which is what we usually do, and our boat. And it's just the three of us and a dog, and we live out here year-round. And we keep busy. In the summer, of course, there's a lot of people coming in and out. And we have a couple families that come out and visit, and they have kids, which is nice for Brandon. And the crew is out pretty busy in the summer. We've got a garden going every summer and try different things. We just grow basically what we can eat for the summer. This summer we have canned and frozen a lot of greens and broccoli and cauliflower. And we tried, the first 2 years we were out here, tomatoes, but they never did much. They got up so big and then they just kind of hung there. But a lot of onion, lettuce, cabbage.
And the wolves come around. I've only seen one down here on the beach, then the two that got the dog. I did see both of those, and got a glimpse of them. And a lot of black bear.
Yeah, every spring we usually have one come here at the house, and I've gotten a real good shot of black bear just behind the kitchen there. All the animals seem to congregate right there. They stop there and they kind of look in. We've had even a moose back there just standing looking in. And got a picture of him also. But
and it was last spring, woke up one night with glass breaking, and there was a bear knocked the windows out behind the couch in our living room, and a lot of eagles around. We managed to find a couple of active nests and watch the young eagles. Well, a lot of people say how great this would be, but they're usually here on sunny summer days. Like I tell everybody, I invite them to come back, spend the weekend in December or January, and then they can base their opinions on that. I think it takes something a little special to be out here.
Getting along with your spouse, you know, that could be very difficult if you're not close, if you don't like to talk, if you don't like the same things, you know, hobby-wise or reading or doing things together.
And there are times that it gets boring, and it gets real boring. It's not all great, because a day like this, for instance, or especially in the wintertime when it's foggy and snowing for day in and day out, it gets real old, and that has to be contended with. I never found anything that cures it 100%. But just wait for the next day and hope it's be better.
Gary and Karen's young son, Brandon, has grown up at Annex Creek. They seem satisfied with the advantages wilderness life offers a young child, even though he has no playmates his own age.
Well, right now I don't think it's really affected him that much. He's too young. And I usually go into town and go up to Anchorage. My folks are up there and stay a month. And I've got a brother that's got a little girl. And we've watched him closely when we go. And he holds on pretty tight the first day usually when we go into town. But then otherwise he acts like any other little boy.
Karen and Gary have been married since 1981. When their son Brandon reaches school age, the family will have other decisions to make about where they live. For now, though, this wilderness family of three is happy to call Annex Creek home.
I certainly don't regret coming out here, and we've enjoyed it a great deal.
Well, we got married in July, and in August we came out. And this has been our honeymoon ever since.
For the Feltz family, living in a wilderness setting at Annex Creek means most of the days are routine, punctuated by moments of high drama, like the night the bear smashed in the front window trying to get into the house. There are times of periodic high drama playing themselves out for those who choose to spend most of their time in the southeast wilderness and avoiding the cities. For those who live in the cities, they don't necessarily avoid the drama, it just comes in a different form. During the Yukon Gold Rush of 1898, Skagway, known as the gateway to the Yukon, was as rough and tumble a Wild West town as you could hope to find. It was full of bunkos, conmen, and no-gooders of every description. Capitalizing on Gold Rush history is now Skagway's most profitable industry. One of the most successful businesses in that industry is a theatrical production based on the exploits of the town's most notorious con man, Jefferson Randolph Smith, widely known as Soapy.
I have a new soap. I have a wonder soap. Here is the finest cleansing agent ever brought forth by man's scientific ingenuity. The fruit of many weary months of research and experiment in my own laboratories. Use the soap upon your skin, and it will glow like the moon. Your face will shine with the radiance of 1,000 candles. Is that bald spot growing, sir? Yeah. Use my soap, and the petrol will wax once more will adorn your brow. Is your hair turning gray? Use my soap, and to the silver threads will return the pristine glory of youth. Does your conscience keep you tossing and sleepless in the silent watches of the night? Use my soap and wash your sins away.
But Soapy's main concern wasn't cleanliness, it was money. And it took a good deal more than a few bars of soap to satisfy Soapy's greed for it. Since it was hopes for a quick fortune that had brought virtually every citizen and drifter to Skagway, it was easy enough to come up with a sales approach that would catch the imagination of nearly everyone within earshot.
I'm giving. That's right, friends, giving. Enormous cash prizes to those upon whose shoulders the goddess of luck has chosen to perch. Cleanliness is next to godliness, but the feel of a good crisp greenback in one's pocket is paradise itself.
All Soapy had to do to increase his profits many-fold was hide one of those crisp greenbacks beneath the wrapper of an occasional bar of soap. Off stage, Soapy takes on the character of Jim Richards, co-owner of the show. In the 13 years he's been involved, the production's name has changed a number of times. Originally called The Soapy Show, it's now called Skagway in the Days of '98, a name that sums up what Jim hopes the audience will get from the experience.
An understanding of what it was like
during the gold rush as much as possible. You know, it's practically impossible these days to really know what Skagway was like during the gold rush. You know, I mean, you have to have, you know, gunfire going off constantly, and have to have crashing pianos and singers with cracked voices and cries for help happening all the time around town for them to get the real feeling of it.
I know all about your thugs and your shell games and your soap trick. You know, if I had it my way, you'd be out of this town, Soapy.
Well, it's my way, Reed. So get out of my saloon. It's specifically historical in its aspect and its scope of the and the way it presents the gold rush, but it's not all chronologically correct.
This man got off the boat this morning and came into town here with 9 dogs.
9 dogs? What do you plan on doing with all those dogs?
What do you figure you're gonna buy yourself a dog sled, load all your gear on it, and mush up the pass and onto the Klondike?
Yeah, stick a claim and become rich and famous.
Oh, yeah,
that's what they all think.
Well, I've got a couple of pieces of advice for you, sir. Before you start on your journey, first of all, the White Pass is so incredibly rough, most people can't even walk up there, let alone gee-haw some dog sled through those mountains. And secondly, sir, a Chihuahua cannot pull a dog sled.
Chihuahua? We need 9 more dogs in this town, like we need another curio shop.
Yeah.
Rehearsing is the hardest part of the show because you're working with new music every year, working with new choreography, new people, and there's a trust between actors out there. And to get those people to be comfortable in any situation with each other takes a long time. It takes well, at least 3 to 4 weeks of rehearsal, you know, 2 or 3 times a day.
Although the show is only performed during the summer months, preparing for each season is a year-round job for Jim and his partner of 10 years, Dorothy Chaplin. She takes care of the business aspects of the production, such as scheduling, payroll, costumes, and advertising, while he handles the creative elements, such as the yearly rewriting of the script.
We were trying to present too much information to the general tourist population last year, and it was kind of hazy there. You know, so to make it clear for everybody, you know, we cleaned up a lot of our little things that we thought were great, you know, because hey, they're learning all this information and everything, you know, and they're really going to love it this year, you know, but it doesn't always work like that, you know. And usually the show that we start with at the dress rehearsal, or even into the 2nd or 3rd week of June, is not the same show that we end up with at the end of September.
But I think that's how we survive for so many shows, is to have the ability to change. And from year to year, 250 shows is a lot of shows to do the same. And by the end of the season, you want to change it for the next year.
And times change. You have to, your audience changes. You know, you're getting gradually a more sophisticated crowd coming through here. Like we're getting the people off the sea goddess, you know, and that's supposed to be some sort of hoity-toity ship, you know. Everybody's, oh, God, you know, you're paying $1,000 a day so you can eat snails, you know, and stuff like that. You know. But they love this show. They sit down there, and we killed them yesterday. They came in here and did the trick on them. They loved it. You know.
Soapy may have been sneaky and underhanded, but he did have his admirers. Enough, in fact, to be named Grand Marshal of the 4th of July parade. He did it by always finding a way to make it appear that what he was doing was for the good of those involved. He even tried to keep his henchmen appearing reasonably behaved, but didn't always succeed.
They just shot them both. Deputy Rowan died in Doc Moore's office while the doc was delivering Anna Rowan of her first child.
With a lynch mob forming outside his saloon, Soapy once more used his gift of gab to turn sentiments his way.
I've got 50 armed men in there ready to pick off the first one of you murderers that makes a move to that door. Now, I'm not denying that a crime has been committed, a heinous crime. But even worse is a lynching. Even worse is mob rule. Because mob rule destroys everybody. It destroys the town. It destroys the very system that protects us all, even Jar and Fay. But what's worse, it'll destroy all of you by dragging you down to the lowest levels of savagery from which there's no coming back.
Soapy managed to quiet the crowd, but the incident spurred a later confrontation with Soapy's arch-enemy, Frank Reed, during which both men were killed. That shootout has been reenacted hundreds of times in a performance that has come a long way since the first hastily produced show when Tom Biss, the show's originator, played the part of Soapy.
We had a little set made out of pallets with a big trunk sitting up there. And Tom would actually read from a script in the lid of the trunk because we had started out so, hastily on this thing that he hadn't had everything memorized by the time we actually started the first show. So
One of the most dramatic announcements is a distress call coming over a marine radio. Nearby boats may be able to offer assistance, but the sound of trouble on the water is hopefully quickly followed by the sound of a Coast Guard helicopter coming to the rescue. The Coast Guard has been involved in search and rescue operations since 1915, when it was organized through the merger of the Life-Saving Service and the Revenue Cutter Service. Today, for a mariner in distress, the sight of a Coast Guard helicopter approaching over the horizon is a welcome sight. Southeasterners in that situation will find some new techniques have been added to the Coast Guard rescue operations. Until May 1986, Coast Guard air rescue in Southeast was limited to landing a helicopter in the water or lowering a small basket to the survivor. With the start of the Rescue Swimmer program, the Coast Guard is now able to put a trained rescuer in the cold Southeast waters to get an incapacitated victim safely in the rescue basket and on their way to the helicopter.
The ultimate goal is to have a complete qualified rescue swimmer crew on board the station 24 hours a day. Just in case it's needed. This particular evolution is a last-ditch effort type affair. We'll get on scene and evaluate the situation as it is, and certainly if the victim is in the water and is capable of getting himself into the basket, we will not deploy the rescue swimmer. Like I said, it's a last-ditch effort. If the victim is injured, hypothermic, unconscious to the point, like I said, where he cannot physically get himself into the rescue basket, we will consider deploying the rescue swimmer. First thing we're going to do once we re-enter the area, of course, we know the survivor's in the water, we know he's by the boat. We're going to simulate as best we can that we're actually on a case, man overboard, in the water, and we're actually looking for a search object.
Recurrent training sessions are required to keep the rescue swimmers certified and the flight crews ready for rescue operations. The drill keeps everyone familiar with the procedures and equipment involved in making rescues, so they work as a team. Without teamwork, the rescue attempt could not be made.
It's an effort based on the feelings of the entire crew. We'll discuss it, and based on the circumstances, the weather, the sea conditions, the wind, take into consideration the entire environment around you at the time, we'll make that decision if we should deploy our rescue swimmer and we can safely conduct the rescue.
When you're hoisting a person, you're always talking to the pilot, you're giving him advisories of where he is to either the boat or the rescue swimmer, and you're hoisting a rescue device down through the water, letting him get inside the basket, and you bring him on up. Always giving advisories to the pilot where he's at and how the hoist is going at all times.
With carrying all the gear we do, you do have to keep physical fit because it's real demanding. you can get tired quick, you know. The water, it's cold, and your hands get numb, and you have to do a lot of hooking and disentangling or something like that, and that can be a little problem. But you know, we tend to deal with it all right.
It's scary. It looks like you're going to go up into the rotor blades, but you just go straight in. Down below in the water, it's spinning real fast and get all wet. But I volunteered for it because it's something I've always wanted to do, and I leave tomorrow, so I wanted to get it done.
During the drill, each of Sitka's rescue swimmers rehearse with the flight crews ways of getting the swimmer into the water and the survivor safely from the water to the helicopter.
We would normally locate the individual, drop our reference smoke, pull into a hover, and ideally we'll have the victim in the water at our 1 o'clock position with the wind off our nose and the smoke beyond the individual upwind of him at the 1 o'clock position as a reference key.
You're communicating with the pilot to move the helicopter over to the hoist position, and while you're hoisting, you're always giving advisories, like I said before, and you just bring the basket down to the survivor and he gets inside. The rescue swimmer is always with the survivor, and he has hand signals that I can understand, and then I can figure out what he's trying to tell me, and then I can do whatever is possible to go along with the hoist.
Okay, he's moving in. He'll get down to 15 feet. Okay, right now the swimmer's assessing the situation. He's checking the water, checking for any kind of debris. You'll see the flight mech tap him 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now jumps in. He'll come up, give him okay, hopefully. He's giving the sign right now. He's away and okay. That means you let the flight mech know you're okay when you raise your hand. Okay, he's approaching the survivor right now. And right now he's checking the survivor. He's checking her arms, making sure there's no lines. And what we do there is we go underneath and we check out for any kind of, let's say, nets or line or anything that could be tangled on them. And so, because you don't want to hoist them, or you don't want to bring that basket in with any lines hanging on them, because if you go to hoist them out, that could be real bad. You know, they could yank their leg or something. It's pretty hard to see as you can, with that rotor wash blowing in your face. That's blowing down about a 90 knot wind. You try to keep the survivor's head above the water. They're moving in right now for a basket. We call this a basket pickup. He'll put her in the basket. Okay, she's ready for pickup. He'll give the signal. Ready for pickup. There she goes on up. Okay, watch the rescue swimmer. He'll give an emergency signal here in a minute. There it is. That means this is simulated. But in a real emergency, that means, hey, I either, you know, I might have got bit by something, or I've got a cramp. I need to be lifted right away. You know, there's something wrong with the swimmer. So what the flight mech is doing right now is he unhooks the basket and will send him to hook. And he'll hook himself up. The basket is the primary rescue device.
While the crew puts in a lot of effort and time in practicing, there are moments when all the work is worth it.
Well, it's that one rescue, you know. It's work, 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 but you know, you get on one rescue and it makes it all worthwhile.
And that completes a dramatic look at 3 aspects of life on the Southeast stage. We'll be back again in another week with another performance at the same time. And we're holding reserved seats for you. I'm Scott Foster. Have a good day.
And in the winter, a young man's blood can freeze solid in his veins. And the sound of a teardrop breaking on the ground may seem strange to you, but it happened to me. And I know how cold it can be to go without a dream on a cold Alaskan night. The wintertime, she lights up the sky. Borealis, come dream with me. We'll dance the night away. They'll never find us, no, they'll never find us in Alaskan dreams, in Alaskan dreams. They'll never find us in our dreams. They'll never find us.
About 10 miles south of Fairbanks, near Esther, Alaska, is a serene, retiring pond. Days pass without comment or care. The solitude here is uninterrupted. An earlier age of constant activity is marked by a machine resting in the middle of the pond. The machine is an electrically driven stacker dredge used to extract gold from the rich gravel of this area. It is as silent and as much a part of this scene as the trees and rolling hills around it. Yet it is ready to work again, missing only its human operators. They have died, retired, or moved on to new endeavors. The dredge seems incomplete without the sounds of boots on the metal decks, the constant flow of workers through these doors. Instead, there is silence. When dredges like this one were in their prime, a film was made documenting that busy moment in the gold mining history of Alaska. Produced as a silent film over 30 years ago, a soundtrack has been added to clarify and amplify the intense life of this now silent machine. Alaskan Gold was filmed and edited by Alan Probert, an employee of the U.S. Smelting, Refining, and Mining Company, primarily to show stockholders living on the east coast of the United States the Alaskan operations of the company. Fairbanks in 1949 was long past its infancy as a temporary boomtown. It had survived good times and bad, maturing to a growing concrete city of 5,700 people. The log homes of those first settlers were still much in evidence, mixed in among newer frame houses. Elaborate gardens provided positive evidence of the roots their owners had planted in this center of government and population. It was also the center in 1949 of gold mining activities in Alaska. Then, as now, the memory of Felix Pedro, the first to find gold in the interior, remained strong. Fairbanks was born because of gold, and the abundance of the metal turned the settlement into a town and a city. In Felix Pedro's day, extracting gold was a solitary process. One man could work the streams and sand beds on his own muscle power. The prospector put the gravel into a rocker. The rocking motion separates the sand and any gold from the larger rocks. The separation is done through slots or riffles, which are placed at right angles to the flow of water. Everything is carefully rinsed to wash any flakes of gold to the bottom of the rocker. The sifted material is transferred to the traditional tool of prospecting, the gold pan. Productive panning is an art form. No two miners do it alike. It consists of two motions: shaking, which shifts the heavier gold beneath the lighter sand, and rinsing, which washes away the top layers of sand. Through repeated shaking and washing, the miner hopefully ends up with a few specks of gold. Unlike the famed beaches of Nome, most of the gold in interior Alaska was in gravel buried beneath a surface layer of silt, ice, and soil, commonly called overburden or muck. This necessitated digging a shaft down through the overburden and gravel to bedrock. Then the miners tunneled out from the shaft, removing the gravel in a large bucket, which deposited the material in a pile at the top end of a sluice box. The method is known as drift mining. The process required mechanization and manpower. Gold mining in interior Alaska was no longer a solitary process. The gravel was run through a sluice box, which acted like a giant rocker to separate the gold from rocks and gravel. After a few years, the heyday of drift mining was past in the Fairbanks area. There had been profit, but the effort often required more resources than a small operation could afford. Enter the United States Smelting, Refining, and Mining Company, known locally as the Fairbanks Exploration, or FE Company. In 1925, under the direction of Norman C. Steins, the company began a massive project that would last over 30 years and provide a major source of employment for Alaskans. It began with surveying the land to locate sample points on a grid pattern. Many of the areas surveyed had been worked by the drift miners. Using a churn drill, the sample points were prospected to determine the volume of muck to be removed to reach the gravel beneath and the amount of gold contained in that gravel. Always there was water for washing and panning and sifting. Placer mining, the type of gold mining done in interior Alaska, is quite simply the process of obtaining the metal by running water through the ore-bearing gravel to separate gravel and sand from gold. Once again, the final sifting of the gravel was done by panning. The FE Company knew they would need enormous amounts of water to be successful. J.M. Davidson had an idea how to get the water moved to where it was needed in the valleys and hills surrounding Fairbanks. His idea became the Davidson Ditch, a major engineering feat. Water traveled over 90 miles through pipes, some of it larger in diameter than the pipe used on the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline. The water flowed through a network of man-made ditches, and when necessary, through hills in tunnels and caves. Construction of the ditch system took 5 years, from July of 1924 to July of 1929. This is what much of the water was needed for. Before the gold-bearing gravel could be dredged, the top layer of frozen overburden had to be removed. The depth of this overburden, or muck as the miners called it, varied from a few feet up to 200 feet. Often the ghosts of early drift mines were uncovered in the process. This log cribbing was built by some miner to support the shaft he dug through the muck and gravel to bedrock. The water bursting from the nozzle between pressures of 60 to 100 pounds per square inch often uncovered not only old cribbing, but fossils of muskoxen, mammoths, and mastodons. These were carefully removed to the safety of museums. The nozzle was counterbalanced so one man could control it with deadly accuracy. Since the muck had been permanently frozen for eons, the job of removing it was tedious. One nozzle would operate for about 2 hours, removing only a few inches of thawed muck. The operator would move on to work other nozzles, and 24 hours later would return to the first nozzle to wash away 3 or 4 inches of newly thawed muck. As many as 48 of these hydraulic giants were set up to strip away 30 or 40 acres of land that a single dredge would mine. In 30 years of operation, 275 million cubic yards of silt and muck were removed. The stripped material was drained away to streams, eventually ending up in one of interior Alaska's many rivers. There was little, if any, ecological damage caused by the silt. Deposits caused by man were minor compared to the deposits in the rivers from melting glaciers. Once clear of the overburden, it was often necessary to remove a top layer of gravel if prospecting had indicated the gold-bearing rock was lower down. This was accomplished by scrapers and a monolithic dragline such as this one. In 1949, it was the largest dragline in operation in the state. Its massive bucket could hold 12 cubic yards, about 40,000 pounds of material, in one bite. The top, or barren gravel as it was known, was transported out of the mining area. Much of the barren gravel would one day become the foundation for the highway connecting Fairbanks and Anchorage. Like some prehistoric dinosaur, the dragline would move around in 7-foot steps, slowly shifting its weight from a load-bearing plate under the main body to pontoons on either side. The dragline could maneuver itself wherever needed. Considering it weighed over 750 tons, its movements were almost graceful. The final step in preparing an area for dredging was thawing the frozen gravel. This too was done with water. Points were driven through the gravel to bedrock. Water was forced through the hollow points, slowly thawing the surrounding ground. The points formed a series of equilateral triangles 16 feet on a side. Driving the points by hand was a tiring process. Repeatedly using the force of a 24-pound hammer, a man could drive down through about 1 foot of frozen gravel in a day. To expedite the process, he worked 30 to 60 points at one time, moving through all the points before returning to drive another few inches deeper at the first point. Using 10-foot sections of pipe, hand-driving methods could thaw down to 60 feet. Around 1945, a point driving machine was developed which would drive the point all the way to bedrock without waiting for the ground to thaw. It still took about as long to drive all the points by machine as by hand, but the machine saved considerable wear and tear on the men. The necessity to thaw the gold-bearing gravel before dredging made Alaskan operations unique. It also extended the time to prepare an area for dredging. From first surveying to first bar of gold could take up to 7 years of hard, persistent work. A point doctor made sure water was flowing through the points at all times. The water would enter the pipes at a temperature of 50 degrees. Thawing the ground, it returned to the surface 15 to 20 degrees cooler. The cool water was pumped into shallow ponds where it warmed up to be used for more thawing. Once the gravel was thawed, the points were removed by one of two methods. By hand, or with the aid of machines. It was easy to spend your entire summer thawing out 30 acres of gravel. Next to water, electricity was crucial to the dredging operation. This power plant, fueled by coal, was built and operated by the FE company to provide that electricity. Later, the plant was purchased by Golden Valley Electric Association to provide electricity for its members. When last heard from, the building and its generators had again been sold, disassembled, and moved to Oregon, where it is still providing power. Crews maintained the vital power lines that snaked through the hills to the dredge site. The lines provided power for the pumps, the drag lines, the point driving machines, and most importantly, the dredges. To reach the dredges, which were in the middle of a pond, poles supporting the power lines floated on rafts. In 1949, there were 5 dredges operating within a 30-mile radius of Fairbanks. Each dredge was freely floating except for one strong shaft near the stern that was sunk down to bedrock. The characteristic piles of tailings so common around Fairbanks were formed by the dredges as they methodically went about extracting the valuable yellow ore from the gravel. Once in operation, the dredges were perpetual motion machines. 3 shifts of men were needed to keep the machinery operating around the clock. The size of the dredge was determined by the capacity of its never-ending loop of buckets. For instance, a 6 cubic foot capacity per bucket was a 6-foot dredge. It swallowed up 6,000 cubic yards of gravel in 24 hours. To provide the buckets with a constant supply of rock, the dredge pivoted on the shaft that was its one contact point with solid bedrock. The giant turned from one side to the other, spilling out tailings and water used to wash the gravel on one end and taking in gold-rich gravel on the other end. And it was bucket after bucket after bucket until bedrock was reached. Camps were built to house and feed the crews who worked the dredges. The stories of these hard-working men became part of the rich fabric of fact and fiction of life in the North. Men like Deep Hole John, Lightning Shorty, Rough Lock, and Little Napoleon. As winter approached, the dredges began to shut down for the year. The dredging season lasted only 8 or 9 months. Activity outside slowly came to a halt by early December. The dredge ponds began to freeze over. Ice formed on the cold metal. There was still some work to do. Once shut down, major repairs on the dredges were made until winter irrevocably stopped everything. Then, as now, Alaskans found other ways to occupy their time. Winter in Fairbanks also provided time for quiet reflection, a pause, a moment to rest. But by mid-March, the pace of outdoor activity was increasing in preparation for a new season. New pipe was laid slip-joint fashion. The end of one section was slipped over the end of another and pounded into a tight fit. Although drained in late fall, portions of the Davidson Ditch filled up with spring ice that had to be removed. Using steam, points were driven into the ice. Dynamite was placed in the holes, and a small channel blasted through the ice. After the channel was cleared by hand, the remaining ice quickly melted when water began flowing through the ditch. One of the more spectacular spring events was clearing the ice from the dredge pond. Using steam, blocks of ice weighing up to 5,000 pounds were cut from the pond. As the block was hoisted up, its 3 distinct layers told its history. The dark ice in the middle was the first to freeze when the pond was full of silt. The clear bottom layer second to freeze, and the white top layer the last frozen. The ice block came to an abrupt end. As much as 15,000 tons of ice were removed from a pond each season. Once thawed, the gravel never refroze completely. However, 2 to 7 feet of surface frost formed each year. This was quickly thawed using steam. Clearing the pond ice and steam thawing the surface frost allowed the dredges to start up before the spring breakup of the river ice. In 1949, breakup was still a breathtaking sight around Fairbanks. Though the dredges operated around the clock, once every 2 weeks they were shut down for cleanup, which meant removing the gold. It was a tightly scheduled event, usually lasting no more than 4 hours. Minor repairs were made while the riffles, very similar to those riffles the lone prospector was using at the beginning of the film, were cleaned. By the time the gold-bearing sand reached the riffles, all larger pieces of gravel had been washed away. The top riffle was 2/3 filled with mercury. As the sand washed over this riffle, the mercury and fine gold formed a solid amalgam or mixture of the two elements. The riffles were removed and practiced strokes with a paddle separated the remaining material into 3 parts. The liquid mercury, which was used again after purifying, a residue of black sand which was stored for later reworking to extract any gold, and the amalgam. The amalgam was collected in what else but a gold pan. It was washed, stored in strong boxes, and taken to town. The final stage of this long process transformed the solid amalgam into bars of gold. The amalgam was placed in a combination retort melting furnace. Not a speck was left out or wasted. The furnace was tightly closed, so there was no possibility of the deadly mercury fumes escaping. The first stage of heating separated the mercury from the gold. The gaseous mercury was condensed to liquid form in this bucket and recovered for reuse. Once the mercury had been removed, a mixture of soda ash and borax was added and the temperature increased to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Slag containing impurities rose to the top and was poured off first. Then the gold, pure liquid gold, was poured into brick-shaped molds. The cool brick weighed about 1,000 ounces, worth nearly $1.5 million by today's prices. Each brick was cleaned, weighed, stamped, tested for purity, and sent by first-class registered mail to the mint in San Francisco. Between the years of 1928 and 1964, at a now unbelievably low price of $35 an ounce, $125 million worth of gold was recovered by the dredges.
what I drink. Juneau's own 630 KJNO.